Diane told me something last month that I haven't stopped thinking about since. It wasn't dramatic. She said it almost as a joke near the end of one of our calls. Dutiful, brief, the kind we have maybe 4 times a year. She mentioned that she used to keep a folder of her own report cards back in high school because I never taped a single one to the fridge, and that she'd counted once, out of some teenage impulse toward evidence, how many of her brother Michael's report cards had made it up there against how many of hers had, 11-0. I remembered that refrigerator instantly. White enamel, avocado magnets shaped like fruit. One of Michael's math tests, curling at the corner, from all the years it hung there, faded almost yellow in the sunlight by the time I finally took it down. Diane laughed when she gave me the number. It wasn't a real laugh. I've heard her real laugh my whole life, and this wasn't it. I didn't say anything for a second too long, and she filled the silence the way she always does, moved on to something about her son's soccer schedule, and I let her, because I didn't have anything ready to say that wouldn't have sounded like an excuse. But I couldn't stop turning it over. It was who I called first with good news. It was whose report card I taped up without thinking, and whose I just signed and handed back. It was the extra 10 minutes I'd spend explaining something to Michael, because he asked twice, and the flash of impatience I never fully hid from Diane when she asked once. None of it was dramatic on its own. That's what makes it worse, I think, looking back. Nobody got left out of a will or a wedding photo. It was smaller than that, and it added up anyway. I used to tell myself it wasn't favoritism. It was just that Michael was easier, gentler, needed less untangling. Diane came out sharp-edged from the start, the kind of baby who cried like she was arguing with you. And by the time she was walking, she already had opinions I didn't know what to do with. I didn't understand then that a harder child isn't a child who needs less love. She's usually a child who needs a different kind, and I gave her the same kind I gave Michael, and then quietly blamed her for it not fitting. It took me 70 what I needed. It took me 71 years to understand that children don't measure love the way parents do. They measure where your eyes go first. Who you smile at without thinking. Who gets one more chance before you lose your patience. Somewhere along the way, Michael became the child I relaxed around most. I never meant for that comfort to look like love. But if I were Diane, I think that's exactly what I would have called it. That night, I got out the box of old report cards. Hers, still in the folder she must have made herself, sometime around 14 years old, kept all this time, moved apartment to apartment, city to city, and I sat at my kitchen table and read everyone. Her handwriting on the folder tab, just her name, block letters, like she was labeling something official. I don't think a child keeps a folder like that unless some part of her is building a case for a conversation she doesn't expect to ever get to have. I called my friend Rosalind, who raised 3 boys and has never once pretended to love them equally, which used to shock me, and now I find almost a relief. I told her about the 11-0. She didn't gasp or comfort me. She just said, I know exactly which one of mine that would be 2, if anybody ever counted. That was it. No absolution, no advice. Just the plain fact that this is more common than any of us admit at the holiday table, and somehow that made it easier to sit with, not because it excused anything, just because I wasn't the only one carrying it. I called Diane back 2 days later and told her I'd found her folder, that I still had all the report cards in a box, and that I'd counted them too. She went quiet, in a way I recognized, because it was the same quiet I'd left her with on the phone. I told her I didn't have a good reason for 11-0, that I didn't think she was harder to love, only harder for me, and that I was sorry I'd let the difference show as often as I clearly had. She said, I always figured it was something like that. Which wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it wasn't nothing either. She's mailing me one of her report cards, Next week, she said. The one with the best grade, so I can finally put it somewhere. I don't know yet if I'll tape it to the fridge, or if that would feel like too little too late for a thing that took 50 years to do once. I think I'll do it anyway. Not because it fixes 11 to 0, because it makes it 11 to 1, and at 71, that might be the only kind of math left available to me.